Hey everyone, this is another podcast episode. This is your host Terry Knight, and I have the lovely Dr. Rachel Gainsbrugh on the line here. She's an amazing entrepreneur turned doctor to full-time short-term rental coaching expert in this industry. She's a heavy hitter. I want to thank you personally for even having the opportunity to talk to you and having the time that you're making to even have the discussion. So I appreciate it.
Oh, Terry, thank you so much for having me. And I so appreciate you putting in the effort and the time and the energy behind this because what you're doing is so important. You're reaching an audience that may not have heard our message. So I just so appreciate you putting all of this great content out there for the audience.
Gotcha. No, thank you. Thank you. So let's get started with you, Rachel, right? Tell us about your upbringing, where you're from, and if you go to college, and obviously you're a doctor. So let's let us know your whole life story before you dive into the side hustle.
Well, when I was a little girl, just kidding. But yeah, so I'm originally born in Haiti, believe it or not, and was raised in Miami. Haiti's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, was raised in an underprivileged area in Miami. But I really valued education. My parents had taught me to value education. I didn't want to take their sacrifices in vain. And so did really well, excel, studied my pants off and went off to college, got the doctorate, did the thing. But you know what, Terry, financial literacy was not part of that education and walked away with nearly $500,000 in student loans. And so for me, that was quite catastrophic. Think about it. So I did the obvious smart thing, after graduating with $500,000 of student loans, which was go and pay it all off quickly, right? No, I didn't do that. I went and bought a big old house and a big old car. I was at the Range Rover boutique. I was going to live my best life ever because I hadn't known what it meant to really manage money. I didn't have money, So when I graduated, that was the first time I had money. And I spent and I did all of the things, but then I realized really quickly when the student loans came due, it's like, oh my goodness, this is more than our mortgage and everything else put together. And so that was a big wake up call for me. So my husband and I, we spent the next several years just grinding it out, just paying off student loans, working moonlight shifts, overnight shifts. I believe between the two of us, we had like 5 jobs at one point between the two of us. And we just really wanted, to pay it off as quickly as possible. He actually is the one who was like, oh no, I'm not about this debt life. I was like, this is fine. Like the house is on fire. This is fine. He's like, absolutely not. This is not fine. And so we finally, got rid of the vast majority of the student loans and just the fatigue from, that grind culture and the burnout culture, especially in healthcare. And so we decided we needed to find a strategy so that we weren't working for our, spending our time generating revenue instead of making our revenue work for us. And that's when we landed on real estate, specifically short-term rentals, and we've niched even more to luxury short-term rentals.
Awesome. Well, that's quite a big journey. You have a family, right? Is it 3 kids
I
or two?
do. Two boys.
Two boys. And how old are they?
They are 16 and 14.
16 and 14. Oh, so they're teenagers. Okay.
Mhm.
So from your experience, because you're a mother and a
Yes.
wife, right? And you're handling the kids in between while working,
Mhm.
how were you able to juggle that with, being a doctor and then
Mhm.
dipping into real estate? Like, how did you pivot to make that work?
Well, you know what? It took a toll on me with having to, not that we had to, but we really wanted to get rid of the student loans. But it really took a toll on me because I was missing out on milestones. And so that mommy guilt was always there. And I don't know if it's something that goes away 100%. And so thankfully, I did have an au pair, a nanny to help out who was live-in, and that was a huge blessing. As a doctor mom, you do have resources, right, to be able to afford some of those things. And it was a woman, actually, my dad had found her for me from a church community. She had taught schools back in Haiti. She spoke French. She taught the kiddos French. It was such a huge blessing, an older lady. And so that helped out a lot, having that help. So for us, since we'd moved from Florida to Georgia, we didn't have like in-laws or parents support, like in person. Of course, they supported us, but they weren't here in person. So we definitely leveraged that. Other pharmacists and doctors I know, they sometimes stay closer to home so that they may have support from in-laws and someone to watch the kiddos sometimes at night so that they can pull a few of those shifts, or local moms who may offer some babysitter services.
Oh, that's awesome. Having the ability to do that obviously helps. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. You mentioned you got into real estate.
Yes.
What did you do initially when you started pivoting on that side hustle?
Yeah, so I quickly drank the Kool-Aid. I was listening to a lot of Bigger Pockets podcasts for like 2 years or so worth of podcasts. I'd consumed it like crazy. Brandon Turner, I heard his tax strategist, Amanda Hahn, Brandon Hall. I mean, I was really interested in all areas of real estate. I looked at syndication. I looked at wholesaling. I was like, oh yeah, that's a cheap and easy way to get in, is wholesaling, right? And then when you realize it's a whole other job and then some, it's like, oh, you know what, that time commitment is not going to be a good fit. So ultimately I started to create my check boxes. Is this going to be something that, first of all, with investing, is this something that I understand? And so that took all of the cryptocurrency stuff. That didn't check any of those boxes because I had no idea what these crypto and NFTs were, and it's still a struggle. The next thing was, and so for those of you who are into that, don't come for me. I just don't understand it, please. I'm still learning.
Likewise.
Right. But real estate, I can touch it, I can feel it, I can see it. And so I went all into, researching and understanding syndications, because a lot of my doctor friends, they were doing syndications. And then I looked at, okay, I understand it. But the revenue potential for me at the time was like, you're making $100 like at the end of the year as an LP. That's a lot. That didn't really excite me, right? It didn't make me want to wake up in the morning. And so I looked at long term rental. So after wholesaling, I looked at fix and flip, and I said, oh, that's a whole other job too, right? Like, you need to really be a great project manager. So really understanding who you are, what your goals are, because Rachel's goals may not be Terry's goals, right? Rachel's place in life may not be where Terry is in life. And so if your full-time, job is an entrepreneur and you have some of that space and margin, yes. But if you're full-time job, you're at a hospital working all day, you might not be able to go wholesaling and, yellow lettering and putting out signs and doing all of that unless you've already established a team to help you with that, right? So just understanding the time commitment, because everything has a cost, is going to be important. So long-term rentals, I saw the revenue there and there's a lot of potential there. But then when I hit short-term rentals, I saw that was 3x an opportunity of the revenue that you get with long-term rentals. And then finally with luxury, it just really changed the game because your clientele is different. So the communication, the level of effort is going to be different. It can be a little bit more strategically streamlined, and the revenue potential was there for sure. And so that's why we went all in. Our very first investment property was a short-term rental. On the luxury side, we did design and set up for luxury, and we really haven't looked back since.
Oh, that's awesome. So you said your first property was the luxury property. How much were you guys generating once you got that one fully operational?
Yeah, fully operational, we were generating gross $8,000 a month.
That's actually really good. And
Mhm.
so for people out there, it's that simple. I mean, obviously there's legwork to it. There's more to it than just getting the properties. You got to, furnish it. You have to advertise it. There's whole aspects in between all of that. But for someone starting out, even when you were, like, what was the best approach for them if they were going to start this journey along
Yeah.
with you or anyone
So
out there?
yeah, and I didn't want to dismiss that there's even more opportunity, because our second property, we're generating anywhere from 22 to 28K gross, and these properties have mortgages of like $1,200 to $3,100 a month. And so there's definitely a great spread there. So for someone starting off, I would say this: when it comes to luxury, modern luxury is so different from traditional luxury. And that's the good news, right? With traditional luxury, it's the accumulation of of things. You're going to fill it up with gold plated toilets or whatever. But modern luxury, especially for the modern luxury traveler, it's not really all about any of that. The luxury traveler wants to live like a local. They want to have a really convenient experience, and they want a unique experience. And if you can curate something like that, you really have a huge opportunity to create a luxury stay. I mean, haven't you seen the glamping sites? How much does that really cost to invest in? So if you're going to create a luxury glamping site, it's not going to be millions of dollars to invest to make that happen. And so that is the biggest misconception, that you need to spend millions of dollars to create luxury accommodations. That's not necessarily true. And so if we're able to think outside the box and leverage our resources, I really think you have an opportunity there. Things that would preclude a luxury stay, you wouldn't be able to market like the neighborhood I grew up in Miami as a luxury stay, right? And we were talking about that a little bit earlier. If it's a little bit dilapidated, yes. I drive into my, to visit mom and dad. Everyone's coming out to see who's there. People are looking in the car as you're driving through. There's not much you can do to to market something like that as a luxury stay. However, you can find a property in a neighborhood that, is well kept, and really create something special there. And so I just want to put that out there. I know we're not talking about regulations or anything like that. Of course, you need to check your regulations. You need to understand exactly where you can operate. But overall, you could really use your imagination and create something special. And there are individuals that are willing to pay for it.
Exactly. Good points. Good points. So you mentioned, I guess, when your first year of the short-term rental side of it, how many properties did you guys manage to get in that 12-month span? And when did you realize it was life-changing? Like, wow, this is like a real business. I can do this full time.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I am a little bit more of a minimalist, Terry. I will tell you that I believe that all you need is one or two well-positioned property to be wildly profitable. And so my goal is, how do I own and operate the fewest number of properties that generates the highest profitability? And that came from the standpoint of, again, being a full-time mom with a whole husband, 2 kids, 3 dogs, just not trying to fight for my life every single day of my life. And so for the first year, I want to say we got up to 3 properties. We don't love doing more than 1 or 2 per year, but we got up to 3 properties, but we were able to acquire a bit of a portfolio afterwards. We own 8 now. We're managing 10. No, we're managing 9. So we're at 17, and we're actually renting 2. So we do all 3 strategies for short-term rental hosting. We arbitrage, we own, and we co-host as well. But for the properties we own, those are the most profitable, because we could leverage tax savings, as well as the equity on the property. So we have equity and cash flow in those properties.
That's amazing. You brought up a good point. That was my next question. But how's your portfolio looking like?
Yeah.
It's very diverse, which is awesome.
Mhm.
What would you say is the best bet for someone to acquire property, like for each phase of it, rental arbitrage versus owning versus co-hosting? Can you kind of break down for the audience what your opinion is on that and how they can kind of get started?
Yeah. So again, it depends on where you are and what your goals are, right? And it's really important to understand all three strategies because in different economies, and as we know, real estate is a uh, uh cyclical in terms of, the ups and downs, right? So in all economies, you need to understand how to invest. And so in between purchasing homes, say I'm waiting for, my W-2 bonus to come in, or I'm waiting for, cash flow to have enough down payment to put on a property. So in between that time, we saw an opportunity. Were presenting an opportunity to rent a property that met our needs and were within the same brand as our current portfolio. And so we went ahead and we leveraged that opportunity to rent that property. And so just really understanding what the three different strategies are is going to be in your favor, because here's the deal. Overall, I would say with renting a property, to rent it out as a short-term rental, rent to rent, or let to let, it's called in Europe, or arbitrage, the upfront cost sometimes seems like it's lower than putting a down payment, but I really want to challenge you to leverage, say, a 10% down. Someone in our community just found a 5% down loan, which was
That's crazy.
so that is, yeah, so that's crazy. So don't always think that arbitrage is going to be the best deal, especially if some of those products are out there and if you're eligible to leverage some of those 5% down products. Because I will tell you, I've seen people, go in on an arbitrage and it's 2 minutes later, it's $50,000 in. I was like, $50,000 by that time, you would have, been able to put a down payment on a property. They don't go in thinking it's 50,000. He initially went in thinking it's going to be 2,000, and then things kept escalating and escalating. And at the end of the day, when you take a look back at the situation, it's like you're in really deep, and it's like, oh my goodness. And so lessons learned, right? So that's what I would say about arbitrage. Definitely an amazing cash flow play, but make sure you're cash flowing, right? Before going in, like pretend like you're in the deal. How do the numbers really look? Not what everyone's saying it's going to look like. Like understand how to evaluate the numbers, because that's really what's going to make you or break you. The second thing is with co-hosting and property management. I would say it's always exciting to get into a deal, right? But I want to be politically correct in saying this, but like not all deals are good deals, right? And so I was that girl in the beginning. I would say yes to all the deals. Yes, 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 and collect all the deals. And after a while, when you're not sleeping well, you're like, well, you should I have really said yes to that deal? Like I'm not sleeping at night. And so part of that is straying from your vision, straying from your brand. Whenever I stray from my vision, even though I try to gaslight myself and tell myself it's going to be okay, it's not okay. It never ends well. It never ends well, And I'm here arguing with a guy from Arizona, like who won't fix the AC because he doesn't think it's that bad. It's 102 degrees, and your guest is like, I am dying. And so, a little sorry, I just
We all go through that. We're
flashbacks.
going through that right now, so
Are
we
you
understand. We
flashbacks?
understand.
Right. And so not all deals are good deals. So as a seasoned, I like to call myself a seasoned investor, you get to the point where you're like, we get offers now. Oh, would you co-host this property? Would you go? I'm gonna hand this property. I'm like, no, no thanks, no thanks, because I already have a vibe from you. And the one thing I've already mentioned, you updating, you don't want to update it. No, no thanks, right? Because it's not gonna end well. you like really thin sheets, and it's just not going to end well. So
The horror stories, yeah.
the hard way, learned it the
Yeah.
hard way. So here's the deal. I have an avatar for everything. I have an avatar for the guests I want to serve. I have an avatar for homeowners that I would consider working with. And part of that avatar is I like them to have not just two properties, not like my primary home and just this rental. And I want to use it as, a co-hosting deal. I'll let you co-host it. If you just have one, I'm not interested because, and then you're hovering, right? They're hovering. I prefer that investor who's out in Texas. They have 8 properties and they just want to know the numbers at the end of the month. And if you give them a recommendation, they're willing to make the recommendation. They're not hovering. They're not in the inbox wanting to message right along with you. So just be really strategic. Like if you're okay with it, if you're that person who can manage all of that, then that may be fine. But I learned really quick what like kind of annoys me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. And I don't have to live a life where I'm annoyed every day. So I decided, no thanks. I say a lot of no thankses before I say yes
Before you say
to
yes.
anything. Yeah. Because if it's not a heck yeah, it's just a no.
And I think you hit it on the mark. I think even for us, we all been down that road. We take everything, then we realize, oh crap, that may not be the best situation and benefit for our well-being, right? So
You have to learn from experience, I think.
that's the best way. That's the best way. So you put it on the mark for all three. That's a great approach, I think, to be honest. We talked before even the podcast. Your goal is 65, 75% occupancy. Anything, above that, it's a little crazy for what you're recommending, which I totally agree, especially on the luxury end of it.
Yeah,
What?
specifically on the luxury because we have
Mhm.
larger homes. So 5-bedroom plus, you have pool, you have hot tubs. So we do need that time in between to maintain and to really make sure that the property is back to, you know, brand new, newly constructed type of vibe when the next guest checks in. But again, if it was a like a loft, a luxury loft or 1-bedroom, and all the amenities were managed by like a maintenance team, that's the building inspector, I would say those you can definitely drive the occupancy to be higher because those turnarounds are going to be quicker. You don't need like a team of 2 or 3 people providing that turnaround.
Okay, gotcha. What percentage would you say for your portfolio is OTA, direct bookings, and any verticals that you may be working with, whether it's insurances or nurses, stuff like that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I would say all of the properties, we have them listed on the OTA. We do get about 30% of our bookings from direct bookings. Actually, I think it was up last month, like 38%. We've been up to 40%, before we hovered by near 40% at some point. So direct bookings, we really like those because we do see a big difference in our gross profits with direct bookings, and we have a little bit more control with the direct bookings as well. We're not as we still want the guests to have a good stay, but we're not as beholden to the OTAs when it comes to those guests. But with direct bookings, you want to make sure that you have your your screening in place, your insurance in place, as well as your payment processing in place. Those are 3 things that are important. As far as our avatar, I would say 50% of our portfolio, we're able to host quite a few of the insurance clients, because those properties are in suburban neighborhoods where the insurance companies, we've been working with them for a couple of years now, and they leverage our properties for those who are displaced due to a fire. For some reason, there are a lot of fires, or a pipe bursting, and the guests are encountering some type of flood. or a natural disaster. So they're able to stay with us anywhere from 3 months to 11 months. Our longest guest was 11 months, paying nearly the same nightly rate as from the OTAs, which was incredible. But we do not host travel nurses. Again, 5 bedrooms. That is not going to be a good property avatar to host travel nurses.
Gotcha. Funny thing you mentioned about insurances. I know you're like the queen of that one, and I've heard so many stories on how you broke into that and how it can benefit you as a host, right? To
Yes.
bring up that occupancy.
Mhm.
Um, can you elaborate more on the insurance side of it to let people know, like, there's different avatars like you mentioned, but insurances, I would have never thought that would be one due to, I guess, the avenues and not knowing how it's structured and how it works.
Yeah, so and I do have a resource for that as well, because that is a question that I get asked everywhere I go. So insurance is definitely a midterm rental strategy, and when you have an individual, say your neighbor, across the street's home has burnt down or it's partially burned, well, that property is deemed uninhabitable, and their insurance policy, whether it's Allstate or Progressive or Travelers or any of the insurance policies, they have a loss of use portion in their policy, and it's under something called like coverage D, and it tells you what percentage of their the property value that can be allotted for short-term rental housing. And it is a really healthy number, especially if you're living in a higher cost of living area. So say the house's value, just for easy numbers, is $100,000, right? Where are you going to find that? I know. And the loss of use coverage is anywhere from 20 to 40%. I actually have seen someone's policy, it's unlimited, which was the only time I've seen that. But it's usually, I would say, usually 25% is the number that I go for. So I know that they have $25,000 worth of short-term rental, I would say, allowance. And so for a fire, it takes about 6 months to repair a fire. You would divide 25,000 by six, and so it gives you an idea of what they're able to spend. Now, the insurance will come in and ask you for like 1,000 a month or 2,000 a month. And I say, again, you remember, no thanks. Here's my proposal. And understanding that, as well as understanding some other strategies, as well as how I'm able to draw up a terms proposal to let them know what I'm willing to accept. And so that was just one example, but most areas you'll find homes that are $400,000, right? So imagine 25% is $100,000 is the loss of use short-term rental housing allowance. So
That's crazy. And have you seen, like, from the insurance side of it, that that's a better clientele because of the amount of time spent on a property and the amount of money you can generate based off the allotment
they're
given?
my best clients. They're absolutely my best clients. They come from a place, I would say, me personally, I've had 100% phenomenal experiences with them. I just know one person who has hosted, one of my members has hosted about 8 of these clients, and they had just one bad experience out of 8, and that's over a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
No. So they're the absolute best clients. So they often come to you from a place of, oh my goodness, my house just burnt down, right?
Mhm.
Oh my goodness, I've been staying in a hotel for the last 2 weeks. Oh my goodness, this family of 10, we get to cook in a house. So grateful. You mean you have sheets? Oh my, they're like trying to go out to the store to, get ready. But if your house is well equipped, you have all the things, they're good to go. They're awesome. And of course, they stay longer. I still have monthly cleanings because I don't want at the end it to have to be a whole situation for my team. So we still do monthly cleanings. We're not breaking out the Brooklyn and sheets for them. The sheets are gone. Just know that the sheets are gone. This is the time if you have colored sheets. I only do white sheets, but I may have some spare colored sheets. This is the time to break out the colored sheets, you know. But they're amazing. They're amazing. Low maintenance, low key, just grateful to be in a place and worried about the construction of their property primarily. And so the biggest misconception also that we have with short-term rental versus midterm rental, oftentimes you have individuals who are very locked into short-term rentals. And I see, you know, the peanut gallery. And when I'm looking on, you know, social media, you would see someone with a really great midterm rental opportunity. And everyone's like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. We don't accept third-party bookings. Well, guess what? With insurance, yes, it's going to be a third-party booking 9 times out of 10. We accept third-party bookings with insurance. Another thing is, what else? Oh, we don't let, you know, with short-term rental, we don't let the guests come on property prior to their arrival date. Guess what? That's another difference with insurance. Yes, you do. So like the first thing is to kind of understand what the rules are for short-term rentals for sure, but then those rules are actually myths when it comes to midterm rental. And so that's definitely a big difference. Yeah. So I've seen a lot of people just miss out on opportunities just by going on social and saying, hey, this person is asking all these questions. And a lot of, you know, individuals, and they're well-meaning individuals that, oh no, we would never do that. Don't ever do that. I'm like, actually, yeah. Do it, you know, because it's going to be 11 months probably until they can get this place, you know, fixed or restored into top shape. And all the while you're generating a lot of revenue with no turnover. And guess what? The insurance is paying the bill. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Do you think insurances work for more of a vacational type of style or more a suburb or a blend? Because we never dipped into it as well. So I'm kind of curious your thoughts on.
Yeah, I actually, for me, it's more of a suburb. But I can see its use being in a vacation rental area. But for me, it's been the suburbs the most.
Okay, gotcha. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And how can someone even consider doing insurance if they're a host already? Like what's their best bet to kind of go down that journey to see if it's even possible for their area or their suit for their properties?
So there is some copywriting that you can add to your listing to make it a little bit more, I would say, insurance friendly. You want to give the perception that you accept 30-night stays. Just bring your suitcase. We love hosting individuals who are displaced from their home. We love hosting those that are relocating to the area. So that gives that a 30-night stay type of vibe. But one thing that we do inside of our community, I teach our members how to really leverage the calendar. Because here's the deal, Terry, if your property, say, is booked, we're in October, it's booked on, you know, October 15th and 16th, and then it's booked in November, 3 days in November, and then it's booked in 3 days in December. You know, everything, you're doing the right thing. These are the things we were taught with short-term rentals. But when that insurance guest is looking on Airbnb or Verbo for those nightly stays for the next 2 or 3 months, your property wouldn't show up in search, right? Because those dates are already blocked off. And so that's something really important, is to the calendar maintenance is something that is really important in order to get that visibility. Another thing that we do is we make sure that we're posting on another site also called Corporate Housing by Owner for those properties. So Corporate Housing by Owner is definitely a great place to post, because that is where the insurance agents are typically looking. So the guests, so you have two avatars, right? You have the guest who's looking for a property, but then you have the agents who's also looking for the property for the guest or the homeowner or the policy holder. They're both looking simultaneously, but both are looking in different places. So the guest is looking on Airbnb because that is the Google search of short-term rentals, but the insurance company is looking on corporate housing by owner. So if the insurance temporary housing agency is, I guess I would say, able to follow up because they're juggling multiple hats, and sometimes you're dealing with catastrophic disasters for an area where they're looking for not just one but multiple homes, you know, they may not be aggressive enough to reach out to you. But if the guest is able to see your property and it does show up in search, they may, go ahead and reach out and let their temporary housing agency say, hey, this one's available.
Awesome. Dropping nuggets. Rachel just gave you guys a blueprint there. That's amazing. I never knew about the insurance game until I heard you talking about it. And I was just like mind blown, like, wow, didn't think about that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, they're my favorite avatar to serve for sure.
Yeah, it seems like it too. You just have to put in the work, right? Put in the work and figure out those different avenues to see where you can help the clientele in that matter. Um,
Absolutely.
so where do you think the short-term rental space is heading? So you've been in the game for a while, long time now. The next couple years, where do you think it's shifting to? Is it going to stay the same? Do you think something's going to change in between? Um, I just want to know your thoughts on that as a whole.
Well, if you just take a look at what we're seeing, even with the way the OTAs are set up, they're favoring, the unique stays. So I think the more you can set yourself apart from the crowd, the more visibility you will get, the more opportunity you will get to get more bookings. So that I don't think has changed significantly. But ultimately, I think it's always understanding your numbers no matter what. So from market to market, the fact that there are more properties that are opening in all of the markets, right, on a day-to-day basis, that is one thing, but you cannot be afraid to go into that market if you actually understand the numbers. So understanding the numbers are key. Just because there are multiple properties does not exclude you from having an opportunity, because there's definitely a difference between saturation and demand, right? And so this is probably something that you heard at the conference. Saturation is where there's a lot of the product, but the prices are, driven all the way down. Demand is where there is a lot of the product and the prices are pretty stable, or the price of the nightly rate has increased. So there's a difference. And I don't mind being in an area where there's high demand. But if I do, take a look at my trends, I do look at my trends on a quarterly basis, and we reshift our portfolio based on what those trends are looking like. So you want to always look at your trends on a quarterly basis. Then you can determine, okay, which properties are performing, which are underperforming, and what is the market looking like as a whole? Is it looking like it's headed towards saturation or oversaturation? And that's how we determine, okay, which houses we're going to offload and where we're going next.
Awesome. That's the best way, I think, in my opinion. Best way. So what's next for Dr. Rachel? Like what's on your agenda for the rest of the year? We're heading to Q4 almost, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you got a whole list of things you want to accomplish before then.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're under construction on one property. We actually offloaded two properties. So anything that's older and that's requiring a lot of capex, capital expenditures, we sold a few of those, and so we're just sitting on cash, trying to build another house. Newer is better for us. Overall, the maintenance is going to be less for newer property. Anything that is, again, older, that's requiring a lot of repairs, we're getting rid of those. The luxury traveler, they want the latest, they want the greatest, they want the newest. And so for us, it's leveraging newer properties, leveraging the tax benefits. So this is the last year you can get your 100% bonus depreciation in 2022. So make sure, if you're looking to buy a property, get it this year. I know we're not in love with the interest rates, but if you're able to leverage bonus depreciation through material participation, all of you with full-time W-2s, this is the year to do it. Next year, you do not get 100%, you get 80%. And the following year, you get 60%. So this is the last year for the STR tax loophole that the multifamily people have been loving and getting for, the last several years. STR, you're able to get those same benefits as well. And so for the next, I would say 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to be interviewing a whole lot of tax professionals to make sure they get my community right. And we have Amanda Hahn, Brandon Turner's tax strategist. She and I were co-writing a book that's being published of this month to talk about this STR tax loophole, because I don't want anyone to miss out on getting that done this year.
Awesome. Yeah, let me know. I'll push that out to everyone I know. That'll be amazing.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm not a tax buff, but can you explain
I'm
what
not
that meant?
either.
Oh, you don't know
So
about the
I'm
100%
not a
or
tax buff
80%?
either, but here's what I know. Like, for example, say you make $100,000. I'm back to $100,000, right? It's an easy round number. Say you make $100,000 a year, you launch your STR. This is a purchase property. And that's, again, why I love purchasing more than the other strategies. And you purchase a property, and say the property you purchase it for $75,000, right? And your $100,000 is from your W-2. $75,000 is the purchase price of the property. There's an expert that can do what's called a cost segregation study. They say, okay, the land is worth $25K, the property is worth $50K, and then they take a depreciation off of the cabinets and the furnishings and the appliances and all of that, and say it comes out to $40,000, right? And so $40,000 of that can be written off of your W-2 income. So you would appear to only have made $60,000, and therefore you can be taxed on the $60,000 that you made that year. So for individuals who say are higher income earners, who are making greater than 100, one of my members, they had $107,000 written off of their taxes. And that's significant. That puts you in a whole other bracket. And
That's
yeah,
crazy. Wow.
it is quite significant. And so I definitely encourage that. So this year, the whole 40,000 in that example that we shared can be taken off. Next year, it would be 80% of that, which is still pretty good, but I like 100%.
Every little penny helps, right?
Yes.
That's
Mhm.
crazy. Okay, I never knew that. Definitely, we'll push out any book you guys have and anything that
Yeah,
can help the community. Definitely,
absolutely.
definitely. So, Rachel, you're like the big deal. So I know you're offering,
Yeah.
coaching and mentorship. Like, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you? Because I feel like you can empower women and just anyone in
Yeah.
general that can get into the same industry and help them scale and propel and just be their own boss. So what's the best way for people to reach out to you and learn more about your offers and all that good stuff?
Yeah, the best way right now, I would say just go to 75gems.com. That's the number 75gems.com. And so that'll link you to my 75 top cities that I'm looking to invest in. And then you'll have access to my Facebook group and my community from there. So 75gems.com.
Awesome. So yeah, anyone, especially if you're a woman too, like I want to empower more women to get more
Yeah.
involved. Um, Reach out to Rachel. She can definitely help you get started and guide you through the journey, right? I mean, you can really make a lot of money in this industry, which
Yeah.
you're proven, individual in this space, a hard earner that just hit the ground running, and you can pave the way for a lot of others as well. So
Absolutely. And that's my passion, to impact the financial, situation of over 1 million women in my lifetime. So this is very much in line with what I would love to do, Terry. So thank you for putting the word out to all the women. Definitely. And, Airbnb published a paper I think Forbes actually, a few months ago, that women made over I want to say $5 billion on Airbnb and outpace men. No offense, men, but this is definitely short-term rentals is definitely a playground that a lot of women could leverage and take really, take advantage of for sure.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I want women to like take over, if anything. So I encourage that. I love the numbers. And I know with your help, you can make that number like exceed that, like
Yeah.
further out there. So yeah, I really appreciate your time, Rachel. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me, Terry.
No problem. Take it easy, everyone. If you have any questions below, I'll have Rachel's details, her website, everything, even this tax book she's co-writing. Um, Take a look at it. It's gems. It's gems, right? It's
Yeah.
exactly what you're offering, and it can help you out. So thanks, everyone, and take it easy.